Hey everybody, and welcome to my spoiler review of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. If you're a big Star Wars fan and love everything, including video games, then please also head on over to my Battlefront Max channel where I review Star Wars Battlefront 2 maps and mods on a daily basis. You can find the link to that channel in the description down below, and if you like what you see, please support me and subscribe to that channel. Now, the first 8 minutes of this video will be sort of my expectations for the movie, and if you want to skip that, please head on over to around the 8.5 minute mark where I have seen the movie, and I will give you my first impressions after that, and then the more in-depth review. Enjoy! Hey everybody, and welcome to a very special video. Today here in Japan, Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker has its opening day. In Europe, of course, you could already see the movie for the last 2 days, which is why I stayed off the internet, not really reading comments and stuff on YouTube. And it is very early in the morning. It is now 7:15, and I'm going to the first screening at the cinema I always go to. It's always also the first time that I will be attending this alone, not with my girlfriend. My current girlfriend is not that much into Star Wars anyway, but she of course has to work, and I only recently came back to Japan, which is why I still have a jet lag, which is why I'm up this early. I actually woke up naturally at like 4 a.m. so I've been awake for the last 3 hours, so I don't feel tired at all. It's an hour trip though, and am I excited for the Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker? Of course I'm always excited to have more Star Wars in my life. But to be honest, this year, it's not as much as previous years. I've also not really revisited the old movies, and the biggest blame for that is The Last Jedi, which I really dislike. Back in the day when I watched it, I immediately said, like, I have some criticism on the movie, and, you know, the more the years went on, the more I really disliked the movie. And to be honest, I really disliked it for what they did to Luke. You know, my youth hero turned into this old grumpy man that abandons his friends. Not true to the character at all. But mostly also, this whole Disney trilogy up until now doesn't have a lot of weight. There's not a whole lot of happening there. Think about it. The original trilogy spans a long time, several years, maybe even decennia, with all these characters. You start off with Luke, the farm boy, and end up with him being, the Jedi Knight, and also with The Empire Strikes Back. At the end of that, there's kind of a clear goal as what's supposed to happen. Namely, Han Solo needs to be saved from the Carbonite, and of course the Emperor needs to be defeated, which of course was introduced in Empire Strikes Back. And of course the clash between Luke and Darth Vader, where you got to know that Vader was his father. So there's all of these revelations happening in The Empire Strikes Back that you want to see the Return of the Jedi because you want to know those answers. Same thing with the prequels. We start out with Anakin as a little boy and end up with him being an adult and turning into Darth Vader. It's a prequel, so it's not as exciting because you kind of know what characters get to live, which ones don't. But still, it's one coherent vision, and feels, it has weight to it. There's a lot that is happening, and you can see how all of these set pieces, are set on the board, and how the situation is what we got with the original trilogy. Here, with the Disney trilogy, I don't know what is happening. I mean, we got the First Order, and The Last Jedi immediately starts after The Force Awakens ends, and basically the Last Jedi is only them on the run in the ships, and then landing on Crate, people call it a battle. It's really not a battle. It's all just speeders heading towards the walkers, then stopping, then returning. And I don't know. At the end, Luke apparently dies, which is stupid, and Snoke's dead. And it's like, where do we go from here? They asked for, other resistance fighters or rebels to join them. no one responded. We already saw, of course, in the trailer that they will respond here. But you know, what is there to do? Another battle between Rey and Kylo Ren. You know, the Emperor apparently returns, so I'm not entirely sure. Again, I avoided spoilers, but I did see the first few like headlines, and they said that The Rise of Skywalker has critics divided, which can be a good thing, because if the critics actually dislike this movie, they were absolutely loving The Last Jedi, and I hated The Last Jedi. So if they actually dislike this movie, I might actually really like it. Same thing with Joker. Quite a lot of critics, professional critics, dislike Joker, and I absolutely love Joker. I'm at the station now, so I'll turn on the camera again when I'm at the station of my cinema. Alright, so I just arrived at the station where the cinema is. It's actually very close. And I want to talk a little bit more about the expectation that I have for this movie. So I don't necessarily hate The Force Awakens. I actually really like it. I think it sets up some pretty cool things that, of course, Rian Johnson then took a big dump on. But I also like characters like Rey. I like Finn, which again, Finn is unfortunately very useless in The Last Jedi. But for this movie, since my expectations are quite low, I think actually the chances are quite high that I will actually like it, because again, I have no expectations, so it can only go up. But like I said, I saw headlines saying like apparently J.J. Abrams failed to, you know, appease the fans. But again, it also said like it's divisive, so there are people who like the new Star Wars movie and there are people who don't like it. I also saw a picture of the Rotten Tomatoes score of 53 or 57. Now I don't know if that is the fan critique or the professional critic score. I will take a look at all of that once I'm done with the movie. I also saw headlines saying like the leaks are true. Now I haven't actually looked up any of the leaks, so you know, I still have no idea what's going to happen. My expectations though, I did see that J.J. Abrams said that some stuff from the prequels is going to be here, which I actually really like, because that makes it all feel more coherent. And instead of like, do I think it's going to be a great movie, it's more going to be, is J.J. Abrams going to be able to save it? Because again, in my opinion, Last Jedi did that much damage with it, with just having a non-story, annoying characters, weird character choices. So all of that. Here's actually the poster. And then before I'll head up, I'll grab some popcorn, grab some stuff there. So here we are. Here we got The Last Jedi, or not the Rise of Skywalker, but here it's called The Skywalker no Yorake. So I'm just done. I got out of the theater, and my first impression after when I'm home, I will do a proper review, more in-depth review. But first reaction, it was okay. It was not as bad as The Last Jedi. And visually, I have to say it's probably the most gorgeous one out of the new trilogy. And there were parts where I got goosebumps. There were parts where I even teared up. But in terms of story, I made me realize that I don't care that much about this new trilogy. You know, there are definitely parts that I liked here, but man, does it not all feel like important what is happening? And at the end of this movie, you're kind of like, I mean, some characters have passed away, but the situation as a whole feels exactly the same as it is at the end of Return of the Jedi. I gotta write some stuff down while I'm on the train. I always do that. I gotta refrain, a long train ride back, I gotta refrain from listening to other reviews because that might influence me. But yeah, no, it's okay. It might actually be that just this new trilogy is not for me. But I have to wait until I definitely say that at the end of the review, but that might be my feeling. Anyway guys, I'll see you back when I'm home. Alright guys, so I'm back home, and now it is time for the more in-depth review. On the way back, I had a chance to write down my positive points and my negative points, and I do have to say that I have more positive points overall than negative. The only thing is that some of the negative points weigh a little higher, which
still makes this movie, in my opinion, okay, but nothing that I was blown away of. Normally, I used to do this just with my phone in a park, in the other reviews of the other movies, but my phone is almost dead, so I'm just going to do this here with the mic behind my PC, and I'll probably have some Star Wars game footage on here while I'm talking about it. Don't forget to check out Battlefront Max for all your Star Wars Battlefront needs. Link is in the description down below. Alright guys, let's begin with this review. So, again, as I said before, visually this is probably the most beautiful Star Wars movie in the new trilogy. It is absolutely gorgeous, beautiful shots, beautiful colors, already just starting in the beginning, but also that one shot that really stood out to me is what we already saw in the trailer, all of those Star Destroyers from a low angle with the lightning. It's just, goosebumps feeling, really, really epic, really, really menacing. So, let's go through the movie a little bit in chronological order, shall we? So the beginning is really cool and really had me pumped up. There's a high tempo and a lot is happening, including a lot of middle fingers to The Last Jedi. So again, in the beginning, you had that cool battle with Kylo on the Red Planet looking for that object to which he can actually find Palpatine. And, you know, he finds it within like a minute, heads over there, and, you know, we immediately see that Snoke is a clone by Palpatine, and that Palpatine was behind it all. So that is sort of like the first middle finger towards Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi. Since originally I think they had actually a lot of planned for Snoke. I remember in even interviews with Andy Serkis saying that when they had Snoke shrouded in, you know, darkness in The Force Awakens, they were going to do something really special with him eventually, but Rian Johnson just pissed all over that, and this is kind of the way to neutralize that. But of course, Palpatine is now alive, and he just sounded and looked really, really cool. I loved the sort of like mechanic and machine that kept him alive, and he looked like a zombie, and it was just, goosebumps all over when I saw him again. Then shortly after, of course, we have actually a few more middle fingers towards Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi, which I definitely approve of, namely, for example, that and correct me if I'm wrong, but Luke's lightsaber, which was broken in The Last Jedi, is now fixed, or it's at least here, or I'm not entirely sure what that is, or if I'm wrong in that the lightsaber that they broke in The Last Jedi is not even Luke's lightsaber. I'm a little bit confused on the hows and whats of that, but yeah, no, I'm glad that Luke's lightsaber was still a huge play, and treated with a lot more respect in this movie than in Rian Johnson's. I'm going a little bit ahead now, a few scenes, but I'll come back to the beginning. But I love that scene with Luke, who unfortunately is not in it enough in my opinion, but where he catches the lightsaber and says you have to, you know, treat a lightsaber with more respect, which I also saw as a middle finger towards Rian Johnson in The Last Jedi, where of course Luke's character throws the lightsaber over his shoulder. You know, that was the lightsaber that his father used and he used during the rebellion, and he just, you know, threw it away, which again was probably decided by Rian Johnson and not Mark Hamill. So, you know, I feel like this is, you know, Luke Skywalker, Mark Hamill giving Rian Johnson the middle finger. Okay, so let's come back. So yeah, so the saber was given to Rey by Leia, and of course Kylo Ren also restoring the helmet because that was also broken during The Last Jedi. And again, I have heard some people saying that the beginning is a little rocky or a little bit, you know, all over the place, but that's actually something that I kind of liked. Again, the tempo was high, and you could definitely feel that by now quite some time has passed since The Last Jedi, which again makes it to where it feels like a more overall you know, arcing story that matters more, which unfortunately by some choices will also nullify it in this movie, but I will come to that in a little bit. What do we got? So, also something that I was pleased about, and I think a lot of people are, namely Rose Tico, everyone's favorite side character, has a very small role. I do say I feel very bad for the actress who plays Rose Tico, because she got very much harassed and pretty much bullied off of social media. And I don't think that is something that she deserves. It was not her choice, of course, for what type of role she played. And but again, the character itself, Rose Tico, is one of the worst characters in Star Wars history. And I'm glad that she was not in it. They also, didn't hint at the whole like love thing between her and Finn. And she was basically mostly behind a keyboard for most of the movie, which was fine with me. So what do we have? So we have, first, they're actually trying to contact a spy. Then they have a pretty cool chase. Again, visually very impressive because they do these like jumps with light speed going from a green planet with this huge snake-like monster to sort of like a floating city that reminds me of like Bespin or Cloud City, to like this really Thousand Needles from World of Warcraft type of red planet with all these like edged rocks everywhere. It's really cool and really flashy. I mean, that's definitely J.J. Abrams' handprint there. You could see that actually with some of his Star Trek movies as well. So Rey is training. They're trying to find a spy. They can't, and they come together. And then let's see. I might take a sip from my Coke every now and then because there's a lot to talk about, so my mouth might get a little dry. Then they go to the desert planet, though I'm not entirely sure again why and how they find what they're looking for. They're looking for that one alien smuggler, bounty hunter type thing. I do remember that. And of course, they get more information from him by our boy Lando Calrissian, who played by Billy D. Williams, and I thought he did a fantastic job. Again, he said in earlier interviews that even during The Force Awakens, he would be okay if they called him in. So again, I think it's very much a shame to have waited this long to bring Billy D. Williams in, because again, I would have loved to see Han Solo and Lando, kick it back again and, are off to all sorts of old guy shenanigans. That's always where I was like a little awkward, where he says like, "Give my love to Leia," and I'm like, dude, that's your like your best buddy's. Actually, it's not his best buddy, but your dead pal's ex-wife. What are you doing here? But anyway, the desert planet was actually quite cool. Again, I like that the whole group went together. That kind of was reminiscent of the Jabba the Hutt scene from Return of the Jedi, where the whole crew was there as well. And they have that festival there. That's all very cute and nice. And then, of course, Kylo Ren sends his forces over, including his Knights of Ren, which the design of the Knights of Ren is very cool, but they almost do nothing in the movie. They have the battle in the end, which is where they get defeated quite easily. But other than that, all they do is just follow the main characters and look ominous, and that's all they do. I mean, JJ set up the Knights of Ren in The Force Awakens, but he doesn't do anything with them, which is, I think, very much a shame, because, again, design-wise, they look incredibly cool. So, in the desert, they have, of course, the chase scene with the two stormtroopers that can fly. That's all cool. I will say that some of the action scenes, even though on paper they were filmed very good and all, they don't really stick out. And there's that whole fight scene on the Imperial ship too, where dozens and dozens of stormtroopers get shot and they're fighting through all these halls, and it's really spectacular, yet it didn't do anything to me. It's not like the old Star Wars movies have really unique set pieces that really stand out. Even in Revenge of the Sith, the battles that you just see for a few seconds really stand out. The Battle of Megiddo, there's probably less than a minute of footage in that movie, yet it stands out. There are these battles on these bridges, you have the tri-droids, it's really cool and spectacular. The Battle of Utapau, of course, a little bit larger and longer, but still very memorable. And here, a little less so. But you had the speeder chase, that was all fine and dandy. They take him out, and then they have the first scene where I was like a little bit, I don't know if bored is the right way, but I was like, okay, they're now getting a little bit sidetracked because they're trying to find this dagger, right? Or they actually found this dagger, which is like a hint towards finding Palpatine. And they fall through this quicksand, and they end up in this tunnel where a snake monster lives. And thank God they did not spend too much time here, because I don't know, it just felt like a side thing. The snake monster itself did not actually look that cool to me. I mean, if you compare it to some other creature designs like the Rancor or the Sarlacc pit, this snake creature is just very simple and kind of boring. But yeah, Rey of course uses force heal there, and then they escape. The creature basically lets them go, and they get out, and then Kylo Ren approaches in the ship. Rey says, okay, I'm gonna wait outside, and then we see the whole scene from the trailer, which actually we saw a lot of, and so that particular point as well did not impress me that much, because, you know, we saw that whole point of like the ship approaching, Rey running away, jumping, and you know, that was that. What did surprise me though was of course that Chewbacca was captured by the First Order, and then was brought on one of the transport ships, and then the first point came where my jaw dropped, because I thought they were going to do something really surprising and really cool, in my opinion. And that is the force pull/push battle between Kylo Ren and Rey. When Rey is trying to hold onto the transport ship with the force, and Rey is trying to push it away, all of a sudden, force lightning comes out of Rey's hands and blows up the ship, and my jaw dropped. I remember thinking, what in God's name just happened? Did she kill Chewie by accident? And I was like, I could not believe it. But in honesty, I absolutely loved it. Again, I love twists like that. I'm not a guy who likes the all happy end Disney kind of thing with so many movies, and you know, I love, for example, the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones that came out of nowhere for me. It's probably the last time I really got surprised by something in its media format. And here I was like, oh my god, is Chewie dead? But then, of course, the moment after, they reveal, oh, there was another transport and he is fine. Again, it's of course kind of a kid's movie, so, you know, it's all fine. And all the main characters think, oh, he's still dead, and I went like, no, he's alive, of course. Now, it doesn't take too long, of course, for them to notice that. But after that, they go to this other planet, Kijimi, or whatever it's called. Because, right, that's right. So the dagger holds Sith language, and C-3PO cannot, or he can translate it, but he cannot translate the language and say it out loud. So they're trying to find this black market droid fixer, and they're trying to like fizzle with its memory so that he will actually say the translation out loud. I'm gonna check my notes real quick. Okay, yeah, no, we're not there yet. So then they, of course, do that. They hinted, of course, in the trailer that C-3PO is gonna die. No, he's fine. They do reroute his memory, though, and for a while, he's sort of like the whole, like, joking shtick of him having amnesia, or, you know, having his memory reset, so he, you know, is meeting everyone again for the first time. Again, it's a joke we've seen so many times. It doesn't work. It didn't make me laugh. But you know, it's whatever. It could have been also worse. I'm actually happy, now that I think about it, I'm actually happy that Chewbacca had a lot to do, actually. There's a lot of action scenes with Chewbacca after he got absolutely cucked in The Last Jedi. My man did nothing but maybe roast a pork here or there. Or a porg, not a pork. So then in Kijimi, there's a lot of like First Order presence, and they also get spotted by the Knights of Ren, who tell Kylo And then Kylo's ship arrives there, and they actually head towards the ship. And they have the battle that I was talking about. They get captured, and then General Hux, which I actually don't know if his ranking is still a general, but he turns out to be the spy. And that actually was kind of surprising. That actually did get a chuckle out of me as well. Though I was thinking, like, wait, when did he turn to be into, like, a spy? Because obviously he was not a spy in The Force Awakens, right? Because he ordered the whole, like, Death Star killer base, so he's, like, responsible for the deaths of billions of people. But it might be, again, after The Last Jedi, because of how Kylo Ren treated him. And he also says to Rey's character, like, I don't care if you guys win, I just need Kylo Ren to lose. But then, of course, he gets shot afterwards. And overall, General Hux is just not a very, again, interesting character. Like, what I mean with, for example, the story, and we'll come to it at the end of this review, but the overall story of the whole, like, Disney trilogy, it doesn't matter. There are so many things that don't lead to anywhere, including, for example, General Hux's character. It doesn't matter. You know, he's a bad guy here, then he's a total dimwit in the second one, and here he's a spy, and then he's dead. Okay, bye. Anyway, so they escape from the ship with the help of General Hux. Where did I go then? Because that's not the point yet where Rey goes back to where Luke is, I believe. What happens then? Actually, that is... No. Yeah, that is the part where Kylo, of course, shows the twist, right? The fact that Rey is a Palpatine, which again is another... It is sort of a middle finger towards Rian Johnson's thing where your parents are nobodies. But I do have to say that this fan theory of that Rey is a Palpatine actually roamed around the internet for years. And I remember that this even happened during The Force Awakens. And so J.J. Abrams did write some stuff down. And I think that might have also gotten around the word of mouth around. And so, yes, it was a good twist that Rey was a Palpatine, but it was not that surprising to me because, that theory actually did float around the internet for quite many years. She was either a Skywalker or a Palpatine, and I even heard someone say once that maybe she is related to Obi-Wan Kenobi. So, they have that battle. Actually, I don't remember if they have a battle, but she's a Palpatine. She jumps off. Okay, so, and then, so after that shot, that is when she returns to where Luke is. And I don't know if J.J. Abrams hates Mark Hamill, but boy does he not use Mark Hamill a lot in his movies. He first absolutely, again, cucked, Mark Hamill in The Force Awakens by only having him in that movie for like less than a minute and no dialogue. And now, again, he's just, in all my honesty, I was hoping like he was going to like deny the whole thing that Luke died. But nope, he's a Force ghost. He's all blue and happy and stuff. What I will say, though, is that I much more like this nice Luke, and it feels much closer to what the actual character was. And it's very clear to me that again, with the whole preset that J.J. Abrams made for this trilogy, that he wanted to be, that Luke and Leia would be like the father and mother figure for Rey, as you also see in the very final shot where you see the two spirits. And she, of course, says that she's a Skywalker. So you can definitely see that what J.J. Abrams had in mind for Luke's character was not what Rian Johnson did with his character. Overall, I did like that scene. Again, like I said, Luke mentoring Rey a little bit, giving her some advice. But then, it gave me goosebumps, and it made me tear up when Luke raised the X-Wing, which I still remembered was there. I remember during The Last Jedi that, what I expected, and I think many other people with me, is when the Resistance was on Crate, that Luke would use that one X-wing, the Red 5, to leave the planet he was on and go and save his friends. But he didn't. But of course the ship was still there, and so he raises it out of the water. And not only that, he of course raises it out of the water, which of course he could not believe was possible back in The Empire Strikes Back. But when he raises it, it is the exact same score as when Yoda raises it. It is the exact same song, and it just made my whole body tingle and nerd tears, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And J.J. Abrams just understands Star Wars way more than Rian Johnson does. It's not perfect in any way, and again, this whole trilogy is, I think, very much tarnished because there's no one vision, but still, you can definitely see that J.J. Abrams knows more what he's doing than Rian Johnson does. So Rey takes the Red 5 and leaves for, I forgot what the planet is where the Sith are, and I actually think that the art design of that place was actually really beautiful. It really reminded me of Korriban, with all the Sith statues and everything, and just the whole Sith cult, all these a huge crowd with all the hooded cloaks. It's just beautiful and such great art design. Again, visually very impressive movie. Again, like I said, I'm thinking about it. I'm a lot more positive than maybe what I sounded, but again, it's the story, which we'll come down to in a little bit. Even though, again, I don't hate it. I said it was okay. And I do like it a little bit more the more I think about it, but let's see what we got here. So she goes there, and she lets the other people know. So basically, the Resistance is going to come after her to help her against all the Star Destroyers, which, again, all the Star Destroyers, very, very cool. It's the same thing, too, where, for example, what I said, well, we'll leave that for the story, with, for example, the final order, how it all does not matter. So, let's see, where are we? So, Luke's, okay, so, they head towards Endor, a different moon, I think, where, of course, the pieces of the Death Star are. They meet these deserted stormtroopers, which I think is very cool, and was also something that I would have done as a storyteller with Finn's character, because he, of course, is a deserted stormtrooper, and there might be more of that, and see how that affects you. And so it's really, really cool that they had that. There could have been a little bit more there, but it's all fine. The horses that they rode were pretty cool. And then, of course, Rey goes into the Death Star to actually, oh, that's right, she's trying to find that triangular thing to actually know the exact location, and she finds it there, and then of course she has the fight, well, very short fight with Darth Rey, or Dark Rey, that we saw in the trailer. And I knew Rey was not necessarily going to be evil, because if that was a twist that's going to happen, that's not something you will show in the trailer. So it was kind of like how Luke fought himself in Darth Vader on Dagobah. That was sort of what this was. It was still very cool. And then they all leave for that final battle. And I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting something. Oh no, actually, yeah, I am forgetting something. They actually have that fight on the Death Star, Kylo Ren and Rey. It's a really, really cool fight. Kylo is probably the coolest character, in my opinion, the most interesting character of this new trilogy, where we've seen that trope so many times of a good person being tempted by the dark side. It's sort of representing us in our daily lives, where we're trying to be good people, but there's all this stress and problems heading our way, and it's sometimes very easy to get mad or angry at people, and we kind of have to behave ourselves. But he's the opposite, where he wants to be evil so bad, yet he always feels, or not always, but he often feels the good in him that's conflicting. And so overall, his whole transition with killing his father, still having love for his mother, it's very interesting, and I love Kylo Ren as a whole, as a character in this trilogy. But they have a battle there, and then yet again something happens that very much surprised me and made me realize how cool it would have been if they just went, down a little bit of a darker path. I said to you that when I thought that they killed Chewie with the Force lightning, I thought, they should have done that. That's such a cool, like, twist that no one sees coming. That might be a little bit too dark for people, but I kind of like that. But it's when she stabs Kylo Ren with his red lightsaber, and again, because she's sort of like also becoming a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more evil, a little bit too quickly for my taste. That is definitely something too that if J.J. Abrams had control over The Last Jedi, or at least Episode 8, that he probably would have already hinted at Rey, having some issues with the dark side or being angry. And it would have felt a little bit more natural instead of like this Game of Thrones-esque thing where Daenerys, of course, suddenly gets evil. And I do realize that in The Last Jedi, there's that thing where like, oh my god, you went to the dark side immediately, but that's not saying a whole lot. So they have that battle, yeah, and she stabs him. And for a moment there, I thought like, oh my god, she stabbed Kylo Ren. She's full of anger, and now she's going to be using his lightsaber, his red lightsaber, and the temptation towards the dark side is going to be even more the case. But no, she basically force heals him, and it made me realize like none of these characters are going to die. All of these characters are just going to be fine, and if something like this happens again, someone's gonna do force heal or they'll do something and they'll be fine again, which does happen in a future scene. But anyway, then the final battle happens. She heals him, and then she uses the Red 5 to head towards where Palpatine is. And she heads in there as part of the Resistance is having a fight up above. And that fight was pretty cool, though it was very short, in my opinion. Space battles in Star Wars have always taken a huge chunk and actually last quite a while and are quite memorable. Think about the first battle of the Death Star. It's like 20 minutes or something, that battle is. What about the Battle of Endor? Not 20 minutes, but does actually stretched out with what's happening on Endor itself with Han and Leia, and also then Luke Skywalker on the Death Star. It very much feels like a big event. Or what about the Battle of above Coruscant in Revenge of the Sith? And here, for the grand scale of things, with like hundreds of Star Destroyers, we had that one cool scene where they have this like ground assault on the Star Destroyer, which was very cool, but again, also shot very, very quickly, ends very quickly, and the space battle itself also goes by very, very quickly, with maybe a few, fights here and there. Then, oh my god, we're about to lose. Poe says, I'm sorry. There's not enough of us here. And then, of course, Lando says, what are you talking about? We have so many people. And then, I do have to say, again, Goosebumps time when they had the Star Wars score and that beautiful shots of just thousands of ships. It's just, oh my god, absolutely gorgeous. And a beautiful, beautiful cameo of Wedge Antilles. I knew that actor, of course, was still alive. And he had done things for games like Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2, so I knew he would probably be okay with like being in like Star Wars again, even if for a moment, and he was, and it was like, and that might actually be my favorite part of the movie. I just love fan service like that, and it's the actual guy, so that was a gold leader and red leader moment for me there with like Rogue One, even though that was reused footage and this was the actual guy. So Rey then has its talk with the Emperor, and they of course do the "do it" thing, which actually made me laugh. And they make a pretty convincing battle in the scene, and again, beautiful visually with that whole crowd chanting, and every time Palpatine says something, they all shout like "Rah!" Which actually kind of reminded me of like it sounded like sometimes like they did a Sieg Heil thing with that, but of course they're kind of supposed to be space Nazis, so maybe that is actually what they were going for. Anyway, so Palpatine is trying to convince Rey to kill him, and then his spirit will be transported into her, and she refuses, and so then they have like a battle. and she, like, which also goes very quickly. Oh yeah, and then so Kylo Ren follows her, which also a very nice shot where, of course, she's in the old type X-Wing, the Red 5, and he comes in a regular TIE fighter. So that beautiful shot of those two classic ships next to each other, I really appreciated. And then Kylo Ren has that fight with the Knights of Ren, which again, they do kick his ass, but only because he does not have a weapon. And then Kylo or Rey and him do that neat little trick where they pass on the lightsaber, and she has a second lightsaber, namely Leia's lightsaber, which I think is actually a very cool touch. And I also really like that scene where Luke and Leia trained, and of course they made their faces young again, which just, again, goosebumps, even though I know it is fake. And I kind of want people to stop doing that in these movies because, you know, it is fake. So, you know, I'm more of a, I don't know, I like it more if things are actual practical and real. But man, Luke is losing a lot of battles in this new trilogy, isn't he? Like, he also lost to Leia, so it's like, again, Luke is definitely my favorite character in, like, the old stuff, so, you know, the fact that he gets kind of cucked in this new trilogy does not sit well with me. Okay, overall, I just wanted more Luke in this movie as well. Cannot believe how little he's in it in the Disney trilogy overall. Even though I know Mark Hamill would love to be in it more. He understands Star Wars very much how it is too. But Rey then eventually get defeated, and like she's on her back, and that's when she actually, like, Palpatine sucks the life force out of both Kylo Ren and Rey, and then sends Kylo Ren flying off a cliff, and you think, oh my god, is he dead? But we've, of course, already seen Chewbacca maybe die, and then Kylo Ren maybe die, so, you know, I was like, no, he's gonna come back. And Rey, you know, is on the floor, pretty much close to dying, and then she hears all of the voices of the Jedi talking to her, you know, saying that the Force will be with you, you know, we're all right next to you. And I'm pretty sure I heard, you know, I heard Yoda, I heard Mark Hamill, I heard Leia, but also Obi-Wan Kenobi, both Guinness from, of course, the old trilogy, and Ewan McGregor, but also Hayden Christensen, you know, Anakin Skywalker. And then, of course, they have that scene where Palpatine says, I am all the Sith. And then she says, I'm all the Jedi. And that is such a cheesy line. And this is part of when I'm going to rant about the whole story, about how it feels unearned. What do you mean you are all the Jedi? Why is this culminating to this right moment here, 9 movies, to where Rey is all of a sudden representing all the Jedi and all the conflict that's happened through all those years, and that's something that I don't understand. It doesn't feel important enough to what is happening, and that's mostly because this whole situation with the Final Order and Palpatine suddenly returning happening in the last movie. You know, it's the thing where if you introduce an enemy and then immediately kill him in that same movie, it kind of takes away the impact of it. You know, ideally, you would have, for example, showcase that Palpatine is still alive in the first movie, then make him do something really powerful and nasty in the second movie, and then take him down in the third. That's what works, for example, with Thanos as well in the Avengers, where Thanos basically, or Thanos, whatever, where he wins in Infinity War, and then, you know, the Avengers are 1-0 behind, and then they have to go and do something desperate to stop him. So, you know, that's what lacked here. She defeats Palpatine, which again just didn't do anything for me, and actually took away from the whole thing that, you know, Palpatine was supposed to die when Vader threw him off, but whatever. So Rey is dead, and, you know, you're thinking, oh my god, she's dead, this is so sad, but of course I already saw it coming, like, yep, Kylo Ren is coming back, and he's gonna do like a Force heal, and then she's gonna come back. But I think either he was too weak, or the amount of Force like needed to actually, you know, bring her back to life was so much that I am forgetting one important scene, which I will come to in a bit with Han Solo. But he basically dies from doing that. They do have a kiss before that, which I thought was cute. But again, he dies. Again, Kylo Ren is the best part of the new trilogy, in my opinion. I think he's a very interesting character, and he does make a transition and evolution throughout the 3 movies. So actually, I really like that. But the one scene that I forgot to talk about was on the Endor planet, where he talks to Han Solo again, Harrison Ford, old, and though I want to believe, and I'm not too sure, I will look this up afterward, I want to believe that this was shot for this movie, but the way they were positioned and everything and kind of what they talked about, and even like the hand on the cheek, I could not help but think that this was again also reused footage of like stuff that they shot for The Force Awakens and then did not go with. And if that's the case, in all honesty, I think that's super lame, because again, it just does not feel genuine. It does not feel honest of what is happening in the story. You know, I would love it if Harrison Ford didn't need to come back and then do this. Then it would be earned and all that, because I know, of course, that Harrison Ford was kind of done with Star Wars, and he only wanted to do The Force Awakens if, you know, they let his character die. And then you're going to do that again. Yet I can see from the position and the actions of the character that it's not really there, that it was shot many times before, not with this particular scene or storyline in mind. So that's the one thing there. So Rey defeats Palpatine. It's all party, and then they have another one of those shots, a compilation of everybody celebrating as the First Order, or Final Order now, is defeated. And you see the Ewoks again, and you see everyone celebrating. And again, I'm thinking this is not earned. The First Order, first of all, is not very threatening, because they lose all the time in both The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens. And again, the Final Order has way too little screen time to actually make an impression. They're not threatening at all, and for the amount of Star Destroyers they had, they went down really, really quickly. I mean, what I said, the beautiful shot of all those ships, thousands of ships, and then the battle that follows, is very underwhelming. Very underwhelming. Like, again, the Battle of Endor was much more spectacular, with much less ships, so I don't know what was happening there. Let's see, what else do I have? So yeah, so everybody also always lives, and it becomes predictable, because like I said, I saw the whole thing with Kylo Ren coming and healing her and blah blah blah. And so we're kind of gonna come to the end of my review here, and you know, I talked about a lot of positive stuff in the past, but now for the last 10 minutes or so, I have been ranting quite a bit, and that does actually make it to where I like the movie again a little less than when I was talking about all those positive points. And like I said, they have the celebration. Everybody like embraces, everybody kisses. That's all fine. I actually saw a headline that apparently people were mad because the 2 women kissed. It's like, oh, really, dude? Come on, it's just one shot. Like, what are you talking about? Just stop being such itty-nitty pickers. But it's all fine. So then eventually the last shot is actually that Rey returns to the Skywalker place. It actually reminded me that, and man, I had a funny thought where if she would be walking there, that the skeletons of like Ambaru and Uncle Owen would still be there, with like Luke never actually cleaning up the skeletons. But anyway, of course, a woman asks her like, "Who are you?" And then she says like, "I'm a Skywalker," when she looks at the spirits. And again, I thought that was a nice ending, and it just made me want, you know, more Luke in the movie. But overall, that is it. And like I said, now we're coming to the story and why I think this is just kind of weak, and why I think this new trilogy is just not for me. And that is because the overall storyline and plot is just it's not important. It doesn't matter. Think about it. At the end, like I said, everybody is celebrating. First Order is gone. Final Order is gone. Everybody's dancing, celebrating. It is the exact same ending we had in Return of the Jedi. If you think about it, we're literally not, like, no step further than that. You know, it's the same pattern again. There's no evolution in sense of the story there. And I think that is such a shame. If you look at the prequel trilogy, you can say, okay, that is about the rise of Darth Vader, how this little boy that was supposed to be one of the best, most honest Jedi, you know, got lost and, you know, got turned into this evil monster. That's what that is about, and how it also, there are many side things, you know, how the Republic fell, the creation of the clones and the clone armies, you know, how the Empire was created. And then you look at the original trilogy. Of course, a time where storytelling was way more simple, right? It's like a farm boy saving a princess, blah, blah, rebellion. But still, if you look at the characters itself, very much character-driven story where all these characters go through so much throughout those years and are way different characters at the end of the trilogy than they were at the beginning. You know, not only Luke, who of course starts as a farm boy and then turns out to be like a Jedi Knight who sees the good in some of the most, the worst people ever, including Darth Vader. But also, for example, Han Solo, who in the beginning is, a smuggler, doesn't care about anyone but himself, does it all for the money, and then, joins the battle and protects his friends and, falls in love with Leia. It's just, it's all done so well. And here, what is it about? Okay, yeah, there's a First Order. It's like a branch of the former Empire, and they're evil, but they lose all the time. And there's this girl, and she is the grandchild of Palpatine. And Palpatine is also back, but it doesn't really matter until the third movie, even though he of course says like, I choreographed everything, blah blah blah, and basically all these 3 movies were about getting Rey to me, and that finally happened in movie 3, and then she's finally in front of me, and I want her to strike me down, she doesn't do it, we have a fight, I lose, bye. See, it just, it doesn't have the same weight as both the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy. And I had that worry going in before I saw this movie, and I still have that here. It's just that the Disney trilogy is just, the story, it doesn't matter. It doesn't pull a lot of weight. It's not for me. And it just, where they promoted it as like, it's the epic conclusion of like 9 movies. It's the epic conclusion of 50 years of cinema. I'm thinking no, because the story just feels like filler. It feels like, okay, we're kind of redoing, the same thing again. I mean, they did say that The Rise of Skywalker was not going to be like Return of the Jedi, and in some ways it's not, but in some other ways it is. I already made a comparison to the Jabba Hutt thing where they're all together in the crew, but also, again, like I said, where you have a battle while Rey is battling the Emperor. Up above, her friends are all, doing the space battle, kind of like what happened on Endor in the original trilogy. And then at the end, they're defeated, and you have the same sort of like celebratory compilation. I can't speak. Again, English is not my native language, and I also have a dry mouth. Let me grab another Coke. That's good. But yeah, man, overall, just story-wise, it's just very, very disappointing, and doesn't stick. It's not memorable. It just, I don't know. There's no setup. Again, so many new things get introduced here and immediately get cut down. It would have worked way better if, like I said, if Palpatine was introduced in the second movie and then did something super evil. Again, that's what they did in the original trilogy. The Empire wins in the second movie, in Empire Strikes Back, and so they have to go, save their friend, confront their own father, deal with this Emperor figure that gets introduced. That's how Infinity War also was. So that's, I don't know. I think overall, when I do look at it, I do think this movie is okay, but I do think that what it made me realize is that overall this trilogy is really not for me. I, for example, have no incentive to, for example, rewatch this movie again, and that's saying something. I don't know. I'm very curious to what you guys are thinking. I did already check the Rotten Tomato score. The 57% is from professional critics, but the fan critique is at 88%, so I might actually be in the minority here, because I do know that my opinion of The Last Jedi, which is very much that I dislike it, is shared by a lot of Star Wars fans. But I'm very curious to what you guys think. Again, it's not bad. I don't dislike the movie, and I like that it does give the middle finger to a lot of choices by Rian Johnson. And I think what I dislike about it is just the overall trilogy in and of itself, and not necessarily this movie. Again, I think visually gorgeous. Some really cool moments. Oh, one more moment that I forgot is that also gave me goosebumps, it made me tear up, is when Chewie gets the medal when he comes home. That was such a beautiful moment and a love letter to old school fans, because in A New Hope, the original Star Wars movie, Han Solo gets the medal, Luke gets the medal, and Chewie gets nothing from the princess. And it's again, it's a love letter to people who are fans from those movies, which I am. For me, Star Wars began with the original movies, and those will always be my favorite. And I don't know, like I said, J.J. Abrams understands Star Wars a lot more. It's just he was not giving the opportunity to flesh everything out. Like I said, I don't think the final order worked very well, though it was very cool to see Palpatine. I don't think they necessarily should have brought him back. It would have worked better if he was like a Force ghost. I actually heard something that apparently in like Legends lore, it is that if a Sith dies, that he can also become a Force ghost, but he's set to always roam on the place where they died because of like their hatred or their evil. They're kind of set to that one point, and it would have been cool if they would have gone back to the Death Star and they would have talked to the Force ghost of Palpatine there instead of him actually being there physically. Because like I said, by always having characters return, it also diminishes the whole fact that they probably should have died. Sort of like Darth Maul, Boba Fett, and now also Palpatine. But anyway, guys, that was my review of the movie. I think it's okay, and that's about it. It's definitely better than The Last Jedi, but that's not hard. I'm very curious to what you guys' opinions is about this movie. I am just indeed, like I said, this new trilogy is not for me. I probably won't return to it a lot. Visually, I think there's some very cool stuff in the trilogy overall, including also the walkers, some of the troopers, the weapons, that sort of stuff, the alien design, ship design is very, very cool. But yeah, that's it. The Skywalker saga has come to an end. To me, it feels kind of anticlimactic because the last trilogy did not matter to me that much because of the weightlessness of the story. It didn't feel all that important, and felt like a repeat of the original movie that bared a whole lot more weight. But anyway, guys, that's my opinion. I'm very curious to what you guys think. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.